Hello, and welcome once again to Lehto's Law. I'm Steve Lehto, attorney at law in the state of Michigan, where I'm practicing law now for 25 years in the fields of consumer protection and lemon law. I often write about this stuff at places like roadandtrack.com as well. I've written quite a few articles on the internet about what to do with respect to traffic tickets, how to fight them, and how to behave at the roadside. And one of the most popular columns I ever wrote was about this. And I've done a podcast, audio, a couple of years ago, but never done a video on it. So today we're going to talk about how to reduce the odds of being ticketed when pulled over. And this stuff is timely, I tell you, because it just happened to me. I got pulled over this past Tuesday night by a police officer who claimed I was doing 71 in a 55. And I took my own advice. That is, I did what I tell other people to do, and it worked out for me. Now, that doesn't prove it'll work for you, but why not try to better the odds to make it less likely that you'll get a ticket at the roadside from a police officer? So, here's what I'm going to tell you to do, and I've gotten this information from dealing with, and I've handled hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of traffic tickets in my career. It's not my specialty, but somehow I just wind up doing it. And I've spoken to police officers, prosecutors, judges, other defense attorneys, and I'm here to tell you what I'm telling you is absolutely, absolutely true. That you can do things to reduce the odds of being ticketed when you're pulled over by a police officer, even if you did what he thinks you did, or she. So, give you an example. I was driving home the other night. I just spoke at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor about Preston Tucker. And I've been driving for a couple hours. It was late. I wanted to get home and watch the election results. And as I'm driving down the road, speed limit 55, I see a car pass me out of the corner of my eye. I recognize it's a police officer. And it's one of those moderately unmarked state cop cars. And so the first thing I do is I lift. That is, I pull my foot off the accelerator. I don't hit the brakes. You don't want to hit the brakes. Then it becomes obvious that you knew you were speeding. I lift and I slow down, just bringing it back down towards the speed limit. And I see, of course, he pulls a U-turn behind me, and pulls up behind me and flips on his lights. Now, here's what you need to realize. When a police officer goes to pull you over, they are not committed to writing you a ticket yet. Okay? They don't have to write you a ticket. Okay? I've actually had a police officer walk up to my car before and tell me, slow down and walk away without doing anything else. Now, you might say, Steve, you get pulled over a lot. Yes, I do. But I've been driving for a long time and I'm an old guy. Okay? I do a lot of driving. And if you drive a lot, you're bound to get pulled over. Just bad luck. Wrong place, wrong time. So, police officer turns his lights on. You have to immediately start thinking about these things to do to reduce the odds of being ticketed. The first thing you do is pull over as swiftly as you can in a safe spot, not safe for you, but also safe for the police officer, okay? You're always thinking of the police officer. Think of it from their viewpoint. If you make it go easy for them, they'll hopefully go easy on you. So I'm driving down the road. I see the lights go on. The first thing I do is I turn signal, pull over to the right. Now there's a shoulder on the side of the road where I am. And I'm in an SUV, a 2002 Ford Explorer, as you know. By the way, last week I challenged anyone driving an 02 Daewoo Lanos to send me a registration. I sent them a free book. So far, 0 takers, which proves my point. The Ford Explorer is not the worst vehicle ever built, but I digress. So I pull over to the side of the road, and because I have an SUV, I can pull way over to the side of the road. So I pull over to the point where I've got 2 wheels off the shoulder onto the, into the ditch, basically. But the police officer now, when he pulls his car up behind me, can walk up and step into that alley I've made for him, basically, knowing that he's pretty safe because he's 2-3 feet off the road. So I pull over as far as I can, put the car in park, and immediately turn on the overhead dome light. Turn the lights on. So when the police officer approaches your car, he can see what's in your car. Think about it from the police officer viewpoint. Late at night, they pull somebody over. They're approaching a dark car. They're going to be on guard. They're going to be scared what's in that car. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they know the odds are that nothing in there is dangerous, but they don't know. They don't know. The odds are, but they don't know. So make it easy for them. Turn the overhead dome light on as quickly as you can. Then roll your window down all the way. And then put your hands on your steering wheel at 10 and 2 so that as the officer approaches the car, he or she can see them from a good distance. Okay? This is very, very important. Because when they walk up and they see you do that, it's 2 things. Number 1, it will put them at ease knowing that they can see your hands. But number 2, hopefully they'll realize you're doing this on purpose. You're doing this to make their job easier. We've all had jobs before where somebody else that was hiring us or working with us did things to make our jobs easier. You appreciate that. You're going to start this traffic stop off, if possible, on the right foot. Now, one thing people often tell me is they say, Steve, shouldn't you shut your car off and put the keys on the dashboard? You can do that. But I didn't because it was nighttime, it was raining, and my concern was that if the traffic stop went for a length of time, my car is going to be having all its headlights on, and I wanted to leave the headlights on. So if the officer had asked me, Steve, shut your car off, I would have then said, okay, should I leave my headlights on or off? And let him know that that's why I did this. So I left the car running, but it's in park. My hands are on the steering wheel, windows rolled down. And now, as he approaches the car, he can see inside the car, I'm all alone. I'm not armed, apparently. My hands are in plain view, and I'm waiting for him. Okay? Now, remember, it's raining out. But again, I've done this window all the way down. I've had people tell me that they cracked the window, and they stuck their license through the crack in the window to the police officer. And I got news for you. The police officer at that point is thinking to themselves, like, what? You think this is like a drive-thru at the bank? Like, deal with me like I'm a person here. I'm standing in the rain. You don't want to get your little hand wet? Okay? So I roll the window down, hands at 10 and 2, and while I'm doing that, by the way, my beloved Breitling is getting rained on. But I put up with it because I want to put the police officer at ease. So the nice young state trooper says, do you know how fast you were going? Now, that seems to be a greeting I hear from time to time. My second bit of advice to you is never confess to anything. Now, there's a bit of a debate on this one. Because if you lie to the police officer, I've heard some police officers go, I don't like to be lied to. But then again, if you say, yes, I was speeding, you lose if you go to court. So what you try to do is come up with something in the middle ground. So he said, do you know how fast you were going? And I said, I'm sorry, officer, I don't. I'm sorry. I apologized. An apology is not a confession. I apologized. I'm sorry, I don't know how fast I was going. And he said, well, is there some reason why you're driving so fast? Now, you got to come up with something, right? And I said, officer, I'm sorry. It's been a long day. I drove all the way to Ann Arbor. I'm driving all the way back. And I'm almost home. I'm tired. I guess I wasn't paying attention, and I'm sorry. Okay, now I realize that's not an excuse. That won't get me out of a ticket in and of itself. But it seems reasonable to me. And he then said, well, where are you driving to? Where's home? And I tell him, I go right up the road. I'm 2 miles from home right now. 2 miles. And he says, oh, okay. And then he says, driver's license, registration, proof of insurance. Now, you have to see that coming. That's almost always going to be asked, right? There's nothing wrong with them asking that. I've had police officers do that. They ask me, they run it, and they let me go. They're running it to make sure there's no outstanding warrants, that you don't have any unpaid tickets, things of that nature. And so they're going to run that, right? So when he asks you for that information, before you move, before you do anything, let him or her know what you're going to do, announce your movements, and if possible or if necessary, ask for permission. So with my hands still on the steering wheel, I said, all my information's in my wallet. I am now going to reach for it with my left hand. Is that okay? And I said it in such a way that I wasn't being snippy about it. I was simply informing him that I was intending to reach underneath myself and pull something out. Because even though he knows that most men carry a wallet in their pocket, and most of the information being asked for is in that wallet, when he sees a man reach underneath himself, that hand disappears for a moment. And until he sees what you've pulled out, he's going to be on high alert because there's always a possibility you're reaching underneath yourself to pull out a gun. And we've all heard stories about police officers being shot at the roadside during a routine traffic stop. Because again, he doesn't know if I'm speeding because I want to get home and watch the election results, or if I'm speeding because I just robbed a bank. Okay? So I said, I'm going to reach underneath myself and get my wallet. That's where my stuff is. Is that okay? And I kid you not, he laughed. The tone of his voice changed. He said, sure, go ahead. But I am convinced, and there's no way I can quantify this or measure this, but I'm convinced that at that moment in time, I won. Because when he laughed, he recognized that, hey, here's a guy who's doing what he can to cooperate with me to make my job go easier. He doesn't know that I'm an attorney. He doesn't know I do podcasts. He doesn't know what I do. But he just knows that when he walked up, my dome light was on, my window was rolled down, my hands were on the steering wheel, and then I asked for permission to pull out my wallet. Now, I've had people say, Steve, I'm a grown man or woman. I don't need to ask permission to pull out my own wallet. And I say, you know something? You don't. And the police officer also can write you a ticket. So we're just trying to work here. It's a form of just being polite, courtesy, okay? You're making his or her job easier, and it's more likely they're going to go easy on you. So I reach in my pocket, I pull out my wallet, I'm flipping through it, I find my driver's license, my registration, my proof of insurance, and I hand it to him. I say, there you go. And he goes, hang on, I'll be right back. Now, this is extremely important also. I've had people tell me that they sat there, they had time to kill, so they start digging through their purse, they start digging through their wallet, they start digging through their glove box. Think about it from the police officer's viewpoint. He goes and he types the information into his computer, and he looks up at the sea, and you've got your head down. Your head is moving around. Now he's wondering, are you up there hiding stuff? What are you doing? What are you doing? And I've had people tell me that they got pulled over by a police officer, and when the police officer returned, he said, can I look in your car? What were you doing? So just like I did, put your hands back on the wheel and sit there like a dummy. And I mean that literally like a dummy. Just sit there, don't move. Sit there, hands on the wheel, window down, rain hitting your left hand if necessary, but just sit there. I didn't even roll the window up. And you might say, Steve, that's stupid. No, because I didn't want there to be a chance that he's going to walk back up, my window be up. I don't want to do that. So the window's down, my hands on the wheel, my dome light's still on, he's back there running my information. I'm sitting there waiting patiently for him to come back. And he came back and he said, Mr. Lehto, slow down. You're set to go. And he hands me my papers. And I indicated a left-hand turn to get back on the road, and I accelerated slowly away and went home. I got out of a ticket 16 over, okay? Now, there may have been other things going on. It may have been the end of his shift. Who knows? Or he may have been lying. Maybe he didn't have me on radar. I don't know. But the point is, I am convinced I got out of that ticket because I did everything properly. I've also, and I'll tell you the truth, the last time I got pulled over before this, a couple years ago, Upper Peninsula of Michigan, a Keweenaw County Sheriff's deputy pulls me over. We passed on the road, the tunnel of trees. If you know what I'm talking about, it's up there. And he did the thing, spun around, broad daylight, okay? So I pull over the side of the road. I don't have dome light, but I roll the window down, hands on the wheels, and he walks up and he says, do you know why I pulled you over? I said, I'm sorry, I don't. And he said, well, you're speeding. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. And he said, is there any reason you're speeding? They love that question. And I said, I'm driving a rental car, and I'm not familiar with it. My other vehicle is a truck, and in a rental car, I go, maybe I'm driving a little bit fast because I don't, recognize the road noise, which, by the way, is actually a decent excuse if you think about it. I drive an Explorer, which has road noise issues, one of the few things that I don't like about it. And when you drive a car that's quiet, you find yourself doing 80, 90 miles an hour real easily, or so I hear. So the police officer at that point says, license and registration, and it dawns on me, the registration is not in my wallet. It's in the glove box. So I said, two things, officer. I go, I'm going to reach in my back pocket, pull out my wallet for my driver's license. But the registration is in the glove box. Is it okay if I reach over and get that? Same thing. He looked at me, smiled, and he said, sure, go ahead. Recognizing the fact that by announcing what I was going to do, I was actually looking out for him and trying to make his job easier. Same thing there. He went back, ran my driver's license, came back. He said, hey, dude, slow down. Gave it back to me. You're free to go. Now, the one thing I do want to tell you, besides everything I've told you about, is that everything you want to do at the side of the road, be as polite as possible and be as unremarkable as possible. That is, don't do anything that would make the officer remember you later. Because let's suppose you get the ticket, or he gives you a reduced ticket. Okay? The police officer could have said, Steve, you're doing 71. I'm going to write you for 10 over. I still might want to fight that ticket. I'm an attorney after all. So the key is when you go to court, the prosecutor's got a stack of tickets and a stack of files, and he's going to plea bargain a bunch of them away, but not all of them. And he's going to ask the police officer, hey, do you have a problem with any of these people? I'm here to tell you that I've had clients tell me, and I've also had prosecutors and cops tell me, that my clients sometimes do dumb things by the side of the road, such as tell the officer, I'm going to see you in court. This will never hold up. I'm going to go to the Supreme Court with this. Don't do that. Because the police officer will remember you and say, oh, that's the guy who told me he'd see me in court. Guess what? I'm here. Now bring it, okay? So the point is, don't do anything to let them have an easier time to remember you. You want them to forget you. You want to blend into a sea of faces in court. So when the prosecutor goes, do you have a problem with this guy? He looks at the ticket and says, I don't remember this guy. Flips it over, there's nothing written on the back, which is where they write the comments. Looks at the front again, looks at you and says, cut a deal, I don't care. Because many of the tickets that do get written get deals. But what we're talking about first, when you pull over the side of the road, think of it as triage. It's first aid. You're trying to lessen the pain or the impact at the moment it happens, and there's a huge opportunity there. The police officer walking up to your car can do everything from write you up for everything you did, throw the book at you, or can do nothing or can do anything in between. And if you make the officer's job easier, you're more likely to either get off or get a reduced ticket. And I'm telling you, I've spoken to dozens and dozens of police officers, prosecutors, judges. I hate to repeat myself on this, but it's extremely important to remember that that is the case, and they do recognize that you've done these things. It will make the job go much, much easier. I've spoken to people across the country on this now, including police officers who've contacted me and thanked me for writing about this, because they say if everybody did these things, it would be a safer place. Think about this. If every police officer for the next week was pulling people over and everybody turned on their dome lights and had their hands on the wheel and, was polite and acted this way and didn't argue with them at the side of the road or didn't have the lights off, their jobs would be easier, okay? I'm not saying they'll stop writing tickets, but if nothing else, think of it this way. If you do these things, you're the one who's not going to get the ticket. The person who says, I don't have to do this stuff, I can be as rude as I want, I can tell them I'm going to see him in court, bite me, that kind of stuff, well, you're going to get a ticket. That's going to happen. Arguing with the police officer on the side of the road will never help you. It will only hurt you. And I'm here to tell you, I've spoken to people. My brother, hope he doesn't mind me telling, got pulled over not too long ago, broad daylight. So he pulls over the side of the road, hands on the wheel, window down, hands on the wheel. Police officer actually said, sir, why are your hands on the wheel? And my brother said, it's kind of weird to be asked that. He goes, so I told her, I did that so you'd know that I'm being respectful. And she laughed. She said, oh, thank you. Thank you. Now, she still wrote him a ticket, but she reduced the charge. So I told him, I said, look, you got something out of it, right? The charge was reduced. I can't cure all of society's ills. I can only fix a few of them. And even then, it's only one at a time. So here's the key. You get pulled over by a police officer. Immediately start thinking from their viewpoint. Think about it from their viewpoint. Pull over as far as you can to the side of the road. Dome light on, window down, hands on the wheel at 10 and 2. If it's daylight out, you might want to shut the car off, put the keys on the dashboard. Hands on the wheel at 10 and 2, and when the officer approaches the car, speaks to you, don't confess. Don't say, yeah, I did it. Don't lie, but do what you can to tap dance down the middle. I'm really sorry. I don't know how fast I was going. I thought I was doing okay, but I'm sorry, And then, when they say, can we see the license, registration, and proof of insurance, then announce your movements in advance. Your officer, I need to reach my pocket. I need to reach in my glove box. I need to look in my purse. I need to do wherever I got it. I got to do this, but tell them that, okay? The last thing you want to do is make a sudden movement and reach someplace they can't see your hands, okay? Don't do that, okay? And then, after they've left and they're going back to their car, you sit there quietly. Don't poke around. Don't rearrange your purse. Don't empty out your glove box. Just sit there quietly and wait for them. And then, above all else, don't be remarkable. You want to be the person that they forget about. If they write 5 tickets at night, you're the one they won't be able to remember, because that will help you later. So those are the keys that will help you reduce the odds of being ticketed when pulled over. Questions or comments, shoot them my way, lehtoslaw.com, LEHTOSLAW.com. I'm on Twitter at Steve Lehto, at STEVELEHTO. And of course, the show's on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Podbean, Google Play, and YouTube, among others. Thanks for watching, listening. Bye-bye.